Okay, welcome to the March meeting of the Audit, Budget, and Finance Committee of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. We've never looked better. Thank you for attending. I'll briefly review the logistics of the meeting. All directors and staff have unmuted lines in order to reduce background noise. Please mute your lines while you are listening. How do you mute your line?
There's a button on your...
Oh, you mean like make it go silent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that I can do. All BFSA staff are in attendance. As is customary, all directors have been invited to attend the committee meeting. I ask that prior to speaking, you state your name so members of the public know who is speaking. Members of the public and representatives of the city and covered organizations have muted lines and are able to listen only. I'll first call the roll call of the committee members present. I'm here. Director Floss.
I'm here, unmuted.
And Vice Chair Jurasek is excused. As we have a quorum, we may now begin with the first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes from the September 23rd, 2019 meeting. A copy of these minutes and the accompanying draft resolution are located in Board Book under tab 1. Is there a motion to approve? Or
so moved.
Okay. I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion of the current municipal bond market and to consider a resolution authorizing BFSA to issue new debt on behalf of the city. Jeanette has asked Mary Francoeur from PFM to join us today to provide a high-level overview of the recent impact to the municipal bond market due to the pandemic. Jeanette, would you please begin? Hello?
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute my line.
I thought I had already been knocked off.
I'm the first one to do that. Okay, so I'll provide a brief summary of kind of a look back for the last 2 years as well as the current year as it relates to what BFSA has performed in evaluating the cost effectiveness of issuing debt on behalf of the city. Back in late 2017 and early 2018, our office worked collaboratively with the city administration and the city controller's office to analyze the potential financial benefit between a BFSA issue versus a City of Buffalo issue. And at that time, the savings over the life of the bond were not significant enough for a clear position to be taken. The city determined it was advantageous to issue debt themselves, and they did issue the 2018 bond series for capital projects. Last year in 2019, the city did not issue long-term debt, but entered into a bond anticipation note program. We had extensive communications with the then interim city controller, surrounding the development of the bond program. It appears that the current controller has vacated that program. This past February, the city controller's office issued a $7.5 million refunding bond. And then moving forward, the original intent was to issue a new money bond in April 2020 for the current capital year projects to coincide with the maturity of the one-year bond anticipation note, which is maturing towards the end of April. So moving forward to what we have evaluated for 2020, initially had our financial advisor review the interest rate differences back in December in preparation for what would typically be the timing when we do our analysis, our financial analysis. And she looked between AAA rated bonds, and as a refresher, BFSA is rated AAA, and A1 bonds, as the city is collectively rated as A1 by all 3 major rating agencies. It is noted that city bonds price higher than what would be expected from an A1 bond rating, and this is attributed to the existence of BFSA and the resulting increase in investor confidence. In December 2019, we were advised that the municipal bond market was strong and spreads were not significant. In anticipation of reviewing the city's final proposed borrowing structure at our March board meeting, I had reached out again to Mary at PFM for an update on the municipal bond market, and it's been volatile to say the least, and I will ask Mary, if you wouldn't mind providing kind of an overview on the municipal bond market, it would be appreciated.
Sure. Thanks, Jeanette, and good afternoon, everyone. So we had done, at Jeanette's request, we had done a refresh of the analysis that compared city issue versus a BFSA issue. And we had originally done that about 2.5 weeks ago. And at the time, there was still market access, and municipals were actually finding a place despite some indications of widening spreads. And it was actually those widening spreads that suggested at the time that a BFSA transaction would actually be more cost effective because after an extended period of very tight credit spreads, we were finding a widening of the spreads between that high A and the AAA that the city and the BFSA enjoy respectively. And so on or about 2 weeks ago, what we were seeing was a market that had suggested that a BFSA issue could potentially be more cost effective. Since then, actually, the municipal market is really kind of closed up, for lack of a better term. There were a handful of transactions that were successfully marketed up until about the middle of last week, and since then there's been really a lack of liquidity in the market. One of the things that's really happened is that across the board in all sectors, not just municipals but corporates as well, is that investors are really looking to establish strong cash reserves, and so there's been a lot of sell-off in the municipal market, in addition to not the same level of demand that we have seen in the new issue market as well as in the secondary market. And so as a result, spreads have started to really widen out. One of the things that the 10-year MMD, which probably at its lowest, which was actually just a few months back in, sorry, I have the date in front of me. The 10-year MMD, which is sort of is a AAA rate, back on January 31st was 1.15%. On the 19th of March, that rate was 2.34%. So that 10-year MMD is actually now double what it was just 6 weeks ago, and it's sort of that 10-year mark where the city or BFSA would be borrowing, and so there's been and what we're seeing is that the MMD has actually been increasing at 50 points across the entire curve. I mean that 50 bips raise occurred on March 19th when the 10-year was at 234. We actually saw another 45 to 50 point increase on Friday. So that 2.34 that I just quoted to you is actually now a 280.
Should we put our phones on mute, please? We're getting some type of feedback from somebody's phone. Thank you.
So the indication from our pricing desk at this point is that they're not expecting any greater stability in the market over the next week or so. And so what we're doing right now is really kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude as we're advising our clients as to whether or not it's time to actually enter the market. So it's a really challenging time in the municipal market, and we're not quite sure exactly where things are going. And one of the things that we're expecting for issuers who have short-term debt, that either variable rate demand bonds. There's some concern that those are going to become bank bonds. That's not going to be a market for, similar to what we saw during the financial crisis, 2008-09. And so one of the things that we're looking at is really trying to see what alternatives are available in terms of short-term access to capital and liquidity through banks and direct purchases and things like that. So that's a quick update on the municipal market. It's actually about as bad news as I've seen in 30 years of working in the municipal markets. And I'm happy to take any questions that hopefully have some answers.
Thank you, Mary. My call dropped towards the end of what you were saying, so but I talked to you about it extensively, so that was very helpful. Thank you. So I think I'll pause at this point and ask Director Floss and Chair Olson if either have any questions as to what's been discussed up to this point.
Well, this is Fred Floss. Given the pandemic and the obvious liquidity needs at the local level, both at the school district and at the city, it seems to me that there's going to be a big need for borrowing, even if it's short term, till the federal and state governments try to figure out how to get money and what our financial position is going to be. Do we have any either recommendations? Are we going to be able to enter the market at all, given the issues of liquidity? And given the Fed's reactions today, do we have any idea about whether or not the markets are going to be open?
So one of the things that we're seeing at the moment is that on the short term, that financial institutions, primarily the commercial banks, are willing to lend, and we're seeing a lot of issuers go to their existing relationships, their financial institutions, and establishing lines of credit. And I think that between that access to capital as well, in advance of what might come out of Washington. And one of the other things that we're seeing too is the potential for the Feds, as they're looking to shore up the capital markets, including municipals, in addition to corporate bonds, in terms of providing liquidity to things like commercial paper and short-term variable rate demand obligations. But I think one of the things that may be important is for the city, the school district, to be reaching out to their banking relationships in order to establish some level of liquidity through a line of credit or some other resource. A lot of that, they're existing, how liquid they are. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering, Jeanette, if we think we need to make that recommendation to the city and the school district. That I'm sure they have to be thinking about it, but would it be a good idea for the control board to make a recommendation that they look at a line of credit given the uncertainty?
I think that is a good recommendation to be made to the board, but for the board to make. I can tell you that we spoke to the city comptroller's office, the debt manager over there, and the financial advisor on Friday. And, due to the volatility in the market, they were proceeding with the understanding that they would be issuing a bond, and then the last 2 weeks happened, or the last 3 to 4 weeks, and it's kind of they're looking into vacating a long-term bond issue at this point and issuing or obtaining some type of a short-term financing vehicle, whether it's a line of credit or whether it's a bond anticipation note or whether it's some other type of loan to kind of try to float them until I think the August timeframe is what they had mentioned, at what point they would take a look at, see where the bond markets are and if they've opened up, and look at doing something more long-term in August. So I could tell you from our conversations that they are having those conversations with the financial institutions. In fact, Mary had made that recommendation on that phone call to them, and their financial advisor assured us that that was occurring. But it certainly is a good idea to reinforce it from a BFSA board perspective. Absolutely.
Okay. Then I would make that motion that we direct our executive director to put forward our concern that both the city and the school district should look at a line of credit or some other vehicle to ensure that they have short-term financing in place given the pandemic.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to kind of wrap up where we also got to is I did provide you a copy of the pricing differential analysis. That's very much in flux with the volatility in the market, but what it suggested at that time, as Mary had mentioned, is that there were substantial cost benefit for BFSA to issue, but even more importantly, with a AAA rating versus an A1 rating in this market, it was providing a kind of a mechanism to mitigate interest rate risk that the city was facing. So based on that, we worked with our bond counsel to develop it's a proactive type of step. It's a tentative approval and authorization to issue debt on behalf of the city. It situates us with a approved financial advisor, being PFM. It's established us with a bond counsel, which would be a re-engagement of Mintz-Levin, and I submitted the engagement letter draft to you as well, and it would tentatively authorize BFSA to basically hit the ground running if it becomes cost effective and the mayor requests BFSA to issue, that we can do so and start working on it right away, with delegation to certain individuals to work on it, being myself, the chair, the interim vice chair, the treasurer, the board secretary, and the controller for BFSA. So it's a pretty broad number of people who can be engaged in this. And we would, of course, update the board as we went along. But this does give us the authorization to be proactive and move forward. Do you have any questions on that?
We don't need to take any action now, or are we set?
Well, no, we do. There's a resolution before you. There's a resolution before you that the chair could make a motion to take.
Yeah, could you just indicate for the public the tentative analysis of savings?
Yes, I can. The tentative analysis was based on the estimated sizing of the bond of $46.5 million. That estimated sizing was provided by the City of Buffalo Comptroller's Office. The analysis estimated savings of $406,000 over the life of the bond, with a present value amount of $350,000, and this was based on an estimated interest rate difference of 19 basis points. And again, I just want to emphasize that this is clearly subject to change due to the volatility.
Right.
But that was the number that was provided when we dusted it off just a few days ago.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second?
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Does that complete our business, Jeanette?
That does not, but that completes our bond business. So, Mary, thank you so much for joining us. And you certainly are welcome to sit through the rest of the meeting, but you don't need to.
Okay, actually, I do have another call to hop on to. But anyway, I appreciate your time, and let me know whatever you need from us. We're here to serve you, and hopefully someday I'll actually get to come up and visit you all in person.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Do you mind if I just move on to the next item, Chair Olson?
Not at all, no. Mm-mm.
Okay. So the next item is to review the BFSA's preliminary 2021 budget and related four-year financial plan and to authorize its posting for public comment. The Finance Committee is not approving the budget at this time, but rather is approving it to be posted for public review and comment. As consistent with prior years, this item will be posted on the BFSA website. Obviously, due to what is occurring, public posting at this time will be limited to the website, but at such time the public facilities reopen, appropriate action will be taken to post the information. Where possible, we typically post it to the public libraries. Public comments can continue to be provided. Information for such comments is posted clearly on the website, and any comments that we do receive will be forwarded to this committee. The preliminary budget is provided under tab 1 of your board book, along with the accompanying draft resolution. I had a few comments on the budget, which is just as an overall arching statement of what we do within the organization. We minimize spending to the extent possible, as we are cognizant of the fact that we operate with public dollars while performing the duties we are responsible for, and to assist the BFSA board in meeting their obligations. I'm pleased to report to you that total operating expenses are budgeted to decline by 0.6% from the prior year, and the most significant change is in the area of salaries. I was able to fill the controller position with a part-time employee who is a certified public accountant who has a municipal finance background, and the ability to create this as a part-time position was largely due to this municipal background. So from a budgetary standpoint, it was a advantageous position for the BFSA. So now I have changed the budget to reflect that this position is now a part-time position. And the total final budget for operating expenses is $983,187.
Jeanette,
so at this time, go ahead.
Excuse me for interrupting. What is our total operating budget?
Our total operating budget is $983,187.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So at
And
this
we should
time,
probably repeat. We should probably repeat the fact that we're able to positively impact the city's financial standing in this difficult time by having a backup on their finances.
absolutely. We continue to provide a layer of underlying financial support with the better pricing than an A1 bond would typically get, and then furthermore, in the current markets, we're able to mitigate some of the risk for sure.
Yeah, I mean, without doubt, this is continuing to be reflected whether we issue the bonds or the city issues the bonds, as has been indicated virtually in every statement from the bond rating statement from the raters. Any further discussion on the budget?
No.
Okay. So we'll entertain
There
a
is
motion
a
to
resolution. Yes, thank you.
approve the resolution.
So moved.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That passes that. Any other business for us to transact today?
There is. The next is to approve Lumsden and McCormick as auditors for the year ending June 30th, 2020. This is a quick one. Proposed minor increase of $300 to the audit fee over last year. And a reminder that we originally contracted Lumsden and McCormick pursuant to a request for proposal. So this action extends that contract for an additional year.
Okay.
Move. We approve the audit engagement letter.
I'll second that. They have certainly done an excellent job for us. Very professional, very prompt and timely. Any further discussion on the motion? I'll second it if I didn't. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that passes too. We're a very congenial group.
And the last item is a brief internal. The last item on the agenda is a brief report from the Internal Controls Officer. It's a statutory mandated report on his internal controls review that was conducted this past year. Bryce?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the committee this afternoon. I'll be brief in my comments since we're getting close to the 1 o'clock hour. The material, the two areas that were reviewed were the document retention and storage, as well as the budget preparation and approval process. And those items are in tab 1 behind the resolution approving Lumsden and McCormick as the BFSA's outside auditor, just for your reference. With BFSA being an agency of 5 staff, there's quite a bit of oversight occurring on all transactions. Segregation of duties was reviewed and demonstrated the controls that are in place regards to BFSA operations are functioning. During the course of my review, there were no material findings. The additional focus was to look at areas where potential fraud could occur. The first area, the first report you'd have in the board book focuses on the document retention and storage. The testing focused on the records retained by the BFSA and if they were maintained with accordance BFSA director's guidance and procedures. They were placed for storing and disposing of all said records. Being a public authority, BFSA falls under the New York State MI1 records maintenance schedule. And at our August 4th, 2014 Governance Committee, the directors in consultation with Mr. McGafford voted to amend the record retention policy to extend it plus 1 year. So all BFSA records will be maintained a minimum of 7 years. We also appointed a record management officer, who is Mr. Nathan Miller, for Resolution 06-62.
Benjamin Swannekamp, Erie County.
I tested a series of records. Some of them include employee timesheets, account payables, meeting minutes, video and written, BFSA resolutions. Minimum of 25% was tested throughout the process. All these documents, for the most part, were available online. If not, they were being stored within BFSA's V drive. As I stated at the beginning of this, there were no material findings. In BFSA's effort to promote transparency and good governance, we post the BFSA subject matter list online, all of our BFSA resolutions for both committees and full boards, including our minutes and videos. And we also include the BFSA operating procedural documents. Moving on to the second area that was tested, it was the budget preparation and approval process. This one was interesting just due to the testing cycle. I utilized the 2019-20 budget to look at the timing requirements. As we just discussed this afternoon, BFSA needs to have the approval of the committee to post our proposed budget. So for 2019-20, I used that budget process for the timing perspective, and then in conjunction with the preparation of the 2020-21, I worked with the comptroller to review what was prepared and submitted. A lot of it has to deal with reasonability of revenues and expenses. Some of the revenues included were sales tax, state aid and incentives to municipalities, as well as the investment income from forward delivery agreements and interest income. BFSA's primary operating revenue, though, is the Erie County sales tax. In regards to revenues, there was nothing noted. Everything at the time looked reasonable. The expenses and budget review, comptroller prepares and utilizes historical data for expense lines in preparing the budget, as well as preparing assumptions over the course of the financial plan. These assumptions seem reasonable. They include the projected increase for health insurance, employee compensation, rent, pension contributions, etc. We briefly touched upon the reporting requirements. In addition to the posting requirements, BFSA is also required to post information into the New York State Public Authorities Reporting Information System, which is also known as PARIS. There is no variance to our posting. All those requirements were met. It's noted in effort to promote transparency and good governance, BFSA posts the following documents on its website: BFSA Budget and Financial Plan, BFSA resolutions authorizing posting a preliminary budget and approval of the final budget, and the BFSA also provides the directors quarterly reports on BFSA operations for their review. I apologize for the brevity in racing through that presentation, but it's a bit dry, and I apologize.
No need to apologize.
Any questions for the directors at this time?
Grace, thank you very much for your work on that and for the mandated reporting. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
And that is the last item on our Finance Committee agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Any further discussion from any board member? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move to adjourn.